Hello and welcome to this session. My name's Nico Franks and I'm the editor of C21 Kids magazine, which is part of C21 Media, the London-based publishing and events company where you can find out everything you need to know about the international content business. So before we get going, let's give our thanks to our sponsors today for this session, who are Fourth Wall, the award-winning creative team, a publisher of kids' books and an independent producer of animated children's TV content. And they say they are very proud to sponsor the CMC. And just a reminder that information on the conference week is available on the CMC app, sponsored by S4C, on the website and here on the conference platform. As usual, you can submit questions through the Q&A heart icon, which is at the top right of the screen. And we'll have time for those during the second half of today's session, so please do send those in for us. And there's no chat function during the session, but it will be open for 30 minutes of back chat after the session is over with some of the speakers from today. It's a real pleasure to be moderating a session on the Young Audiences Content Fund, aka the YACF Fund, and what it's achieved so far and where it's going. I've written lots and lots of stories over the past few years and sat in many CMC sessions which have all been about the need for more programming, specifically for older children in the UK. So it's great to see the fund beginning to have an impact. And you can find out more about the latest projects to have received funding from the fund on c21media.net now. That's one of our top stories. They were announced yesterday, and there's some great projects in the mix there. So our panelists today, we're going to be in discussion with Jackie Edwards, who is the head of the Young Audiences Content Fund at the BFI, and also some of the broadcasters and producers who have successfully tapped into it. We've got Louise, who is the VP of Programming for Kids, UK and Ireland at Viacom CBS Networks International. So Louise oversees channels like Nickelodeon and Nick Jr. in the UK, also Channel 5's preschool block Milkshake, because CBS 5. We've got Rosa Diaz, who is the Managing Director and founder of Afro Mike Productions, who are a Belfast-based production company that last year was one of the 15 up-and-coming UK production companies to be selected for the Indie Lab Actor Program. And last but not least, Joe Killingley, who is to Dot Productions. And Joe has been behind shows such as Little Pups and Ninja. And we're going to kick off now with Jackie, who has always been popular, but never more so now that she's got £57 million to play with. So she's going to give us an overview of what the fund has achieved so far and where it's going. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Nico, for that introduction, and good morning, everybody. It's lovely to see these lovely faces, and I'm imagining your lovely faces in the audience there. We introduced the Young Audiences Content Fund last year at CMC, and as you know, it's a DCMS supported pilot with a resource of 57 million lovely recoupable pounds to support the development and production of brilliant new public service content for children and teenagers in the UK. And I'm back to tell you how year one went. I am going to give you an overview of what the fund has done in year one, but first, a tangent. It is a relevant one, I promise. I just want to take a moment to show you the winners of our See Yourself on Screen challenge, a creative challenge we put to young audiences in the UK during lockdown. It was a great initiative, and we called out to 4 to 18-year-olds to submit their ideas about what sort of TV they'd like to see during lockdown, what sort of show that they would pitch and want to make. And with the winners would actually be mentored by celebrities, and they'd be made and put on screen. I know, it's exciting, right? So it was a great initiative. And with the help of our friends, FYI News, BAFTA Kids, and led by the lovely, lovely Dr. Ranj, we got great coverage and great promotion. And as a result, hundreds and hundreds of entries. And the entrants all pitched their ideas for top telly programmes via a 30-second pitch video. And our esteemed judges, panels of producers and broadcasters did a sterling job of selecting the winners at Vola's entrance. And with 3 winners for each participating channel: CITV, Channel 5, E4, TG4 and S4C. Before making their lockdown film at home, the winners, all 15 of them, were mentored by top telly talent like Harry Hill, Robert Popper, Reggie Yates, Jessica Hines, that Cheryl Taylor, and Rob Delaney. It was a great experience for all involved and so much fun to do. And the winners' finished films will be seen on our partner broadcast platforms over the coming days. Louise Bucknell, I believe you played Squeaks and Weeks, a guide to guinea pig care this morning on Milkshake. Thank you for that. So why did we do this, I hear you asking yourselves? Well, lockdown was a time when kids were at home and public service broadcast took on an even greater importance and relevance to all of us, but especially children. The challenge sort of ties into the core purpose of the fund in that it was generating new, original, informative content that young people would like to watch. But most of all, it offered young people a means of engaging directly with television and also offered them a means of creative expression, an opportunity to share their ideas and experiences in lockdown, which was a really difficult time for us all, but especially tricky for young people, I think. When we launched the fund last year, I spoke about the fund being a community endeavour, how we'd all need to actively engage with it to make it a real success. And See Yourself on Screen channel really speaks to that, I think. People that care about great telly for young people came together to make this work. Producers, broadcasters, industry bodies, all holding hands with our audience, and I thank all of you. I think we did something a bit lovely with this. Can we roll the VT of the winners, please? And I also want to thank Ewan Vinicum and Charlotte Prentice for making this thing happen, because they are absolute stars. So if you could roll the VT, please, thank you.
I'm going to teach you all about my guinea pig. We made a guinea pig tea party! We just need to wait for a special guest to arrive.
Hey guys, my name's Harvey, and I'm here to help you make your quarantine fun.
I need to use a,
screwdriver?
That's the one. Also, Dad, what's an Allen key?
Who?
Hi, I'm Kyle. And I'm Sam. Yeah! Erin, what's up?
My legs, they're so hairy. Oh my God.
Mum? This is Dad. Today we're gonna make chocolate chip cookies. This is fun.
Another day in the wrong body.
Bachgen natur!
Grace? Help Ilan, trofi nôl!
Uh-oh.
Oh yeah!
Hi, Lucy Menshaw, Mel Firsha, agus Sean Doy, a Jerry Lum, a Veg Inner Sawala.
So I made a list and ripped it up. Then Adam and me threw it way up in the sky. It really made me feel better.
Thanks. Absolutely love them. Just such a great thing, special thing to do for our audiences. The challenge was also a brilliant opportunity for us to ask entrants some questions. And with the hundreds of entrants we had from around the country, only a quarter of them felt like they see enough children like them on TV, which is sad, but absolutely speaks to Ofcom's report in 2018 and the need for a fund like the Young Audiences Content Fund. So after all of that, now the very thing you've been waiting for, graphs and indeed charts. Here we go. So, sorry, I didn't keep up then. So we had 227 applications received by the year one. I'll just add all of the data you'll see in the following slides is taken directly from our online application system, and it's compiled by our independent evaluator. So as I say, 227 applications received by the end of year one. which consider we were box fresh on the 1st of April last year and running in time and everyone getting to know the fund and how to use it. I don't think it's too shabby. Indeed, we made our first awards, I think about 6 or 7 weeks after we opened the doors. And we've been going strong ever since. So of these applications, 81 were approved for awards, 18 for production and 63 for development. 50 projects have been declined by the end of the year. A further 96 are decisions pending, and of those, 70 are well into the assessment process by the end of March. And the total value of awards we made in year one was £13.2 million. So, sorry, I've gone too far. Sorry, bear with. There you go. So, what sort of... So I've missed a slide somewhere. Okay. What sort of programmes? Well, they're the sort of programmes that speak directly to the programme deficit areas that Ofcom identified. We're producing and supporting more high-quality original programmes for older children, more programmes that help children understand the world, and more programmes that enable children to see their lives on screen. There's plenty of live action. Drama makes up the largest proportion of both production and development awards. Factual and factual entertainment are featured, and older children are well catered for. The animated programmes have definite sensibilities of the UK and quirky sense of humour that will serve as a great cultural counterpoint to imported animation. So where did the applications come from, I hear you ask? As you can see, the fund love was spread all around the country, and hopefully we're seeing a more nationally representative content landscape evolving on the back of this pilot. Just in terms of mixing things up, the team, and God bless you team, you've done a brilliant job this year and worked really, really hard at maximum engagement with creative talent and companies in the UK, pushing lots of info and encouragement out via meetings, panel sessions, events, and all of that. And I feel that we are on the road to a more representative and inclusive landscape. As you know, the BFI leads industry on diversity standards. It's crucial to the fund and integral to our application and reporting processes. At the end of year one, we're seeing a lot of new voices. There's great representation from nations and regions and Indigenous language as well. Great LGBTQ plus and voices from different socioeconomic communities are really well represented. But there are two areas we're not seeing quite the right level of representation. BAME and people living with disability, we're underrepresented in terms of applications and awards in those areas. And don't get me wrong, we've had decent engagement and really great ideas, but it just could be a bit better. And so we welcome more applications from those communities. And we are and will be working hard to encourage more engagement from everyone, but especially these underrepresented groups. So, oh, hello. Come on, clicker. There we are. So what have we learned in year one? Well, lots of things. It's been a really busy year, and I think we've covered an awful lot of ground. From a standing start, we just about managed to launch on time and got going really, really quickly. As people that have used the fund will know, it's a wholly online system, and via an independent audit, it's been deemed a robust and fair process, and we got a gold star, in fact. And the great thing about having a fully online process is that when COVID hit, we didn't miss a beat. We're able to keep on supporting industry via this fund. We like to brand ourselves as the friendly fund, but we're also the flexible one. It's a pilot project, as you know, and so we're able to adapt things to better suit industry need. As part of our process, we put a questionnaire out after 6 months, a customer survey, if you like, and we'll continue doing that every quarter. And we had a great response back from people that had used the fund, and a really good satisfaction score of, I think it was nearly 80%. And that was even from people that didn't get granted an award, so that was quite nice. But we know that there are frustrations too, which we have and are addressing to improve response and assessment times. But, we're always listening, so please tell us. We want this to be the best and most useful, user-friendly fund. The other thing to note is we've had, as you know, a lot of applications, many of them some complexity. Making 81 awards a new one from a standing start, I think, is a pretty good way to go. But I suppose the biggest thing we learned in year one is what a creative, resourceful and resilient production community the UK has. Just the variety and ambition of projects, the stories and the truths told are amazing. The keep calm and carry on resolve in the face of COVID-19 has also been pretty phenomenal. So now, running out of time, but here's the really lovely bit. Here are some of the projects we've supported, some development funding awards here. So from beekeeping to gay badgers, shows that we've been supporting all are relatable and representative and telling new stories from new voices. It's all of it fresh and speaking directly to our young people. 63 development awards have stimulated a lot of brilliant creative endeavour and helping to skill up the talent base in the UK. And we're really seeing the importance of properly resourced and structured development. The quality of new pitches has already been noted by some broadcasters. And honestly, what a useful resource this funding has been during lockdown. It's something that people can go on even if they've got restrictions around production. So, keep on applying. Production awards, as Nico mentioned, conversation earlier, we made a new slate, a second slate announcement yesterday with some brilliant new shows. From 18 production awards in year one and further 7 this year. Basically, the production awards, I think, are providing something for everyone. We're covering all sorts of genres, age groups. Techniques are all here, from brilliant surreal comedy for teens on Channel 4, drama and factual for S4C and Alba, game shows and comedy crafting for CITV, and all sorts of live action and animated wonderfulness on Milkshake. The beautiful and emotive lockdown content for E4 is just a wonderful range that I know will thrill and enthrall young audiences. So, as I said, new ideas are always welcome, so keep on applying. Year 2 is looking very busy already, so book early to avoid disappointment. This is where you can apply on the BFI website. And remember, the money is non-recoupable. That's the best thing about it. Right, I've talked long enough probably, and before I get shouted, I shall hand you back to Nico. Thanks for listening.
Brilliant, thanks Jackie. And yes, now we're going to hear from Louise, who, obviously Channel 5's been getting involved. So let's hear about that.
Yeah, I mean the fund is an incredibly important initiative. It's enabled us at Milkshake to really expand out the diversity of the UK originations that we have, and we've been able to look at new formats. Last year we announced that we had doubled our investment at Channel 5, and also this coincided with the fund. So this has enabled us to really sort of look at new formats. So the first time we've had a live drama, which is Mimi's World. This is from Adastra, and it's going to be filmed in Belfast. It's moved to next year to be filmed. However, some of the pre-production scripting, etc., is all going ahead now. And it's an incredibly important drama that will see kids with a modern day Mary Poppins deal with their emotions and their choices of how they deal with those emotions. So it's a soap in effect. We also have some other live action formats. Again, these are formats that we haven't had on Milkshake for many years, and we're able to bring these to Milkshake as a result of the fund as well. Meet the Experts from Boom Kids, based in Cardiff. And this is, again, very much to sort of see kids represented on screen. This is about kids' passions and hobbies from a kid featuring a new presenter, Sam Bruce, who's training to be a stunt woman. And this is about accomplishment achievement from kids. So we're delighted with that. Again, it's moved to next year because of safety of filming with kids. And then the other live action is The World According to Grandpa, which has just been announced from Grandpa Productions, which will be based in Manchester. It's also with S4C as well. And this is a beautiful storytelling show about imagination and the relationship kids have with their grandparents. The granddad is going to be Don Warrington, and there's also a puppet voiced by Sally Lindsay, and this comes from a fantastic writer, Chris Heath, and all about the questions that kids ask and an amazing tale that he tells to sort of tell the story. And then 3 really high-end animations, Circle Square from Winley Animation, Winnie and Wilbur from Winduna, that's going to be sort of the production partner is Sellout Productions, and this is based on the books by Valerie Thomas and Corky Paul about the mishaps of Winnie the Witch and her beloved cat, and then Milo from Fourth Wall Animation, and this is their first commission, so we're delighted to be working with them. They're based in the Wirral, and this is all about jobs and sort of seeing what jobs that you can do. So it's allowed us to sort of regionally work with new partners. We've allowed to be able to get more kids on screen, diversify our projects, and also I just think for the live action productions particularly, it's enabled us to get them into production faster. I think in the open market, getting funding, particularly for a drama, would have taken much longer. So we're delighted with that. And I think the last thing is also the fund enables funding to go into screen skills, which then gives something back to training within the industry. So as I say, it's an incredibly important initiative. We're delighted with the production funds that we've had, and the team at the fund have been absolutely brilliant and great to work with. Very, very thorough. They're going through a lot of applications, and they discuss, sort of all the elements with us and the producers. So it's been a real success for us.
Great stuff. Cool. Okay, we'll quickly move on to Jo. So get the Indies perspective. Jo, how has Dot to Dot been using the YACF fund?
Hi, thank you. First, I'm going to talk a bit about the new series that we've had commissioned, and then my experience of working with the YACF fund. Our journey began last year. CITV were looking for an art series, so we put our thinking caps on and we came up with a show called Makeaway Takeaway. I think we've got a slide of the logo. It's an idea with children at its heart, presented by the super talented Beck Hill. I think there's another slide of Beck. Thank you. A comedian with an infectious, sparky sense of humour, as well as being a fantastic artist, if you've seen any of her YouTube clips, who's got an amazing rapport with the target audience. She does lots of kids' comedy shows. And Beck also happens to be female, and that's strangely not so common in the art world. So partnering with CITV was very straightforward. They made their decisions really quickly and decisively. And once we knew they loved the idea, we were ready to fill out the application form for the YACF fund. How do we find the BFI application form? The form took a bit of time, but that was mainly gathering the supporting material. But it was clear and forward-thinking in terms of ensuring indies find underrepresented cast, crew and production talent. The YACF fund made sure the budget lines were very fair, enabling us as indies to pay proper wages to young talent, enabling us to invest in and develop, genuinely helping them. The project was a good match for the YACF fund's criteria. We had great talent, and the programme had British kids central to the idea, reflecting all cultures across the UK. Makeaway Takeaway is a live action series, and it encourages children to use their imaginations and get involved in art, something that is rapidly disappearing from the school curriculum, but is so very important. Children are also increasingly aware of the need to look after the environment and the necessity to recycle, and Makeaway Takeaway will focus on how everyday objects we throw away can be transformed into something useful. As a company, we feel passionately about art. It helps children think out of the box. Creative ideas are the basis for individuality as well as the starting block for all flourishing innovation. An art programme would normally struggle to get commissioned as the budgets are tight, and although often hugely popular, they're not seen as commercial. Without the YACF fund, I don't think we'd have been able to make this series, so I'd like to thank them for this opportunity. Thank you.
Brilliant. And Emma, so your production company was involved in one of the quick turnaround productions that was produced under lockdown. So tell us a bit about that.
Indeed. Thanks for having me. It was one afternoon I was sitting thinking about my niece who's 13, and I was like, how's she going to cope? And this is when it really started. It was strict and nobody could go out filming. And I was thinking about young people in general and going, okay, they're going to be stuck on their computers on the internet doing TikTok videos, but that will all sort of fizzle out. What are they going to do? What would I have done when I was 13? And I had pen pals, so I used to write letters a lot. And I was having a conversation with Navi Lama from E4, and we were talking about letters, and I said, well, is there anything we could do with letters? And then the title came up, Letters in Lockdown. And that's when I first came across the fund as well, because I honestly, because we have NI Screen here, I wasn't sure if we would be able to apply, being regional as well. But when E4 introduced me to the fund and I was introduced to Jackie and her team, they made it's always very scary when you're going for development, or any kind of funding, because there's so much paperwork, but they were there the whole way through helping us. So Letters in Lockdown, the whole idea was to get 6 short films from young people between 13 and 18 across the nations and regions to write a letter to someone that they missed in lockdown. And I didn't want it to be just letters to their grandparents. I wanted it to be a bit grittier and have maybe stories. Maybe they'd fallen out with someone in school and they wanted to make amends with them, and we found some really, really good stories. We put a casting brief out online across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we were inundated with young people wanting to write letters to loved ones. And because we couldn't film, we thought, well, kids are great with their iPhones and whatever else they have in the house that they can film themselves. So we put a very precise shot list together with our director, and it was really hard because there were so many people applied, but I just put it down to let's find a story in each region. So we found someone from Wales, Manchester, Birmingham, London, Northern Ireland, and we cast them and we started filming with them, and we had to chase them a lot because you have to keep kids motivated, but they were very, very creative with their stories. And I have a clip. This one is a bit of a tearjerker. This is Soham. He's from Birmingham, and he lost contact with his dad when he was about 4 years old. He's had a few visits from him. His dad moved to Qatar, and he just wanted to reconnect with his dad. I think he's 16 now, and this is a clip from his short film.
My name is Soham, I'm 16 years old and I'm from the Midlands.
I'm writing a letter to my dad.
My dad left the country for work when I was about 4 years old.
I've never had a father figure to look up to.
Dear Dad,
I'm writing this letter to express my many thoughts and questions over the years. It also left me wondering whether it's ever too late to change things.
If I had to choose a favourite memory of my dad and I, it would be a pool game that happened 4 years ago. I remember looking forward to it so much that I even dressed up in a suit.
What I want when my dad reads the letter is to feel as if he knows me more as a person. I'm just grateful that he agreed to do this.
To my dad, I'm writing this letter to share some of my highs as well as lows that I've experienced in your absence. Since you moved to another country, you have missed quite a few things. I sang during Christmas to hundreds of people. The Swiss snowy mountain view was spectacular. We climbed up a mountain where we got the opportunity to walk through actual clouds, not just mist.
Not just mist or fog. The view at the top was out of this world.
I wish you could have been there. The layer of the clouds that surrounded
was like a white blanket of snow.
Hello?
Hi, Soham. You look different from the last time I saw you. When I got your letter, I have broken down like 2 or 3 times. I was very emotional, and you've done some great things. I'm so proud.
So I'm glad that you've got to know me a little bit more now from reading that letter.
Let's be in touch more often.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
As you said, it's never too late.
So we feel we made a difference with some of the stories, and reconnecting people, and we've been in touch. Soham's absolutely delighted. And we did learn an awful lot in the process. We worked closely with Dr. Howard Fines, and he called our contributors, and it just gave us a lot of reassurance that we were doing the right thing by picking the sort of grittier stories, because hopefully kids from all diverse backgrounds will sort of relate to these stories, and I don't know, hopefully kids will maybe start writing letters, because I was talking to some of the contributors after, and they said they loved it, and some of their letters were unbelievable. They had glitter and stickers all over them, and they just got so creative. So it was lovely to see them doing something, when they couldn't go out and just hang out with their friends. So yeah, and the team at BFI, the young audience, the team, they were just brilliant, and we turned it around in 6 weeks. It was crazy, but thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would give them a gold star, to be honest, because I feel like now I've got a relationship. And when Jackie was talking earlier about, I'm dying to see all the on-screen competition. Those clips were amazing, and that just gets your creativity going. What else could we do for young people to engage with them? So yeah, I'm just very grateful. Thank you.
And with a quick turnaround, so did that go straight into kind of the production side of the funding, or did it kind of have the development part and then also the production part?
Because we'd already sort of developed it up with E4 and with Navi, it was pretty much ready to go. There was a few things the BFI team, Jackie's team, came back with. It was just trying to figure it out, because we were doing it in lockdown, and we figured it out together. How are we going to direct the kids in lockdown? And just when I mentioned that we were going to have animation in it as well, we just had to, be very clear about what we were going to promise. And one thing Joe said was they were very helpful with the budget, because regional were used to doing things on tighter budgets, but they worked with me and made it very, very, like you said, Joe, made sure people were getting paid what they're supposed to be paid and everything. So that was very, very helpful. That was good.
Great. Go ahead, Joe.
I did forget actually to say this, Jackie, so I'm really sorry. But you were the dream team. They were transparent. They were helpful. Literally no question was too ridiculous. So when something popped into my head that I think that's too ridiculous to ask, someone was always on the end of a phone or email to answer what I thought was ridiculous questions, but I don't think they necessarily were. But they are transparent, helpful, and I'd encourage anyone with a great idea to get in contact.
Thanks, both. That's really nice. I mean, I like them, but it's just lovely to hear that they are bloody brilliant. They are bloody brilliant. So.
And Emma, obviously you're based in Belfast, and we've had a question coming in about where the awards have been granted in terms of where production companies are based. And although there has been quite a lot of outside London, the person asking the question has pointed out that a third are still in London, which is still quite a lot. So is that something that you're going to be addressing going forward, Jackie? Or do you feel like the natural way things are coming in is that there is a natural spread from across the country?
I think there is a natural spread coming across the country, and I think a big part of our Year One activity was trying to get out and about all around the country, and doing festivals, events, and speaking to as many people in the regions and nations as we possibly could. And again, I'm going to throw back to you, community. You've got to tell your friends, encourage people that haven't necessarily heard about the fund from all around the country to use it, because it's there for you. It's for you to kind of develop your businesses and produce great content for young people. So we made a real concerted effort to get out and about, and I think that really is reflected in the awards to an extent. And I think the interesting thing is going to be how the development awards translate through to commissions, because I think the diversity mixture is sort of more evident in the development pot. But, it's not a lot in it, but it is sort of slightly mixing things up more and, changing, I think, the production landscape in the UK in a really good way.
Cool. Thanks to Rachel Westwood for that question about the regional production. And we've also had some questions kind of wanting to drill down into what you mentioned earlier, Jackie, about seeking more applications from production companies and creators from a BAME or people living with a disability background. Is there something kind of practical and tangible that you're going to do to try and readdress that balance beyond kind of encouragement and I guess crossing fingers that applications will come in?
Yeah, no, well, crossing fingers. No, we always try and be proactive when we've got something we need to do. We'll get out there and sort of engage with people in every which way we can, and being truly representative of all audiences was our big mission. And so we've done really well in most areas, but those two not. And I think, there's a myriad of reasons, and, talking to people like Simone at TV Collective and producers, I think there are a myriad of reasons why we're not seeing take up. And I'm actually quite confident we'll see more engagement as we go forward. And it was quite interesting the other day. So I thought we'd done quite a good job of it, of sort of engaging people over the last year, but did a panel for the TV Collective, and there were 48 TV production companies in the Zoom room, but only 39% of them had heard about the Young Audiences Content Fund. Now, maybe that's because mostly they were working in grown-up telly, if you like, but that was a really interesting thing. And sort of on the back of that conversation, and, obviously who doesn't love the free money, right? We've had a lot of sort of communication and interest. And I think people we met last year as well on our travels, from all sorts of groups, sometimes it takes a while to kind of brew those development ideas and format them in a place when people are ready to apply for the funding. So I think, I'm really confident we'll sort of see better engagement, but we're going to keep on keeping on and reaching out to our communities. And as I say, it is a community endeavour. So all of you guys have got to kind of tell your friends.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting seeing production companies either kind of aging up potentially, and then some aging down in order to kind of reach that audience that really feels like it has been ignored in the previous kind of decade. But good seeing that change. And so I think I'm right in saying that 11.5 million of the fund has been spent so far. So that leaves quite a lot left over for the next couple of years. So how are we going to see that impacting the activity?
Well, we've got more production awards to award, and actually it was a bit more than that because the 11 was just production, so there's development on top, so I think it's more like 13. But yes, we purposefully sort of set a lower target for production awards last year and a bigger amount for development awards, because that was going to be a really important component of things. And this year we've got more of a focus on production awards, and I know there's a lot of concern, quite right, justified concern about sort of commissions and what's going to happen over this year. But already we're not far off in terms of cash ask for the amount of money we've got available on production awards. So we've got sort of a bigger pot to play with this year on last year. But I think we'll use it. I mean, we're only a few months in and we've already got a lot of applications through the door. And as I was saying earlier as well, the development piece is really important at the moment in lockdown, because development activity is something you can quite easily and usefully do while we've been sort of under the restrictions we have been. So, we've seen a lot of development applications on back of lockdown and encourage people to do so. We're processing things as fast as we can. But, this is really useful money. As I say, it's free, so therefore great. But, we're doing brisk business already this year, and I expect it to continue.
Yeah, because I suppose that is the elephant in the room, the fact that COVID-19 is having such an impact. And there's a question from Amanda Kerridge, who's saying that the feedback from the PSBs so far has been that they're not commissioning anything new until 2021-22. And you kind of alluded to this just now, but in terms of how that might affect the fund, so is it that there's going to be a big shift towards development, I suppose potentially towards animation as well?
Well, as I say, we've got enough production applications through the door already to sort of quite, pretty much cover our production budget. So I think there will be more things coming through, and we're already in conversations with broadcasters about what they've got in their lineup and minds that will come through to us over the coming months. So I don't think there's going to be a problem as such in spending the funding. But, we anticipated sort of bigger development spend being last year, but I think, this year we're looking at need. We've got a lot of applications coming through, all brilliant stuff. So we've got flexibility in our budget lines, and we can switch things around as we need be. So, we're seeing what comes through the door, and we'll make a call sort of over time.
And Louise, how's your production slate looking?
Yeah, I'd say I'd echo that in that we're pretty well stocked up until sort of 2021, but obviously there are placeholders in there of things that we are already in discussion about. So, for example, we have a show, Pop Paper City from Love Films, that had development funding from the fund. We also put some development funding in from Channel 5, and we're progressing that. So that will be something that will go into the production fund application very, very soon. So we've got sort of shows on the roster already that we're discussing with Jackie and her team. So there are more to come, we hope, fingers crossed. A couple of other projects that are already in as part of the pending application. So we're hopeful that those will get a positive outcome, but then would be for sort of 21-22. So we're quite ahead with the applications that have gone in, as say 6 shows to be awarded that within a year. We were talking about this last year at CMC, and it's amazing that we've got 6 that have actually been funded by within a year. So that's an amazing result for us. So yes, we've got sort of other shows that are coming, and sort of we will look at sort of other development projects. We've got other pitches that are coming to us over the coming months that have received development funding from the fund. So we will be sort of processing through those as well. So there is definitely a sort of good pipeline of very, very diverse and different projects, working with different regional companies, and also, sort of looking at, as Jackie said, addressing sort of the diversity of the content both on and off screen as well. So, we're really pleased with the quality of the development that's coming through as a result of the funding, and also the fact that when we talk to producers, if they pitch to us and we say, look, this isn't quite right and needs a little bit more development, go to the fund and see if you can get a development funding for this to sort of progress it further. So I think that's been a very good initiative as well for a lot of producers to sort of get that funding for development very, very quickly.
Okay, and sorry, go ahead, Jackie.
So I was just going to say, I think that's the message as well, because it's sort of quite easy to fall into a bit of a pessimistic mood about sort of the future and what's coming ahead. But the thing I think about it, and broadcaster proclivity is not really my scrubby patch of land anymore. But Louise, you might want to speak to this. We need to keep on keeping on and look to the future. And you're still taking pitches, and yes, you haven't got slots till 2021-22, but the process of development and commissioning and then raising additional funding, that's not sort of too far out of the usual, really. So that's what I'd say to producers is keep on keeping on, keep looking to the future, because things will get better. It seems a bit sort of gloomy now, but things will get better. So keep on keeping on, really. Use this fund to keep your business going and with an eye on those future commissions, which will surely come.
And there's a question from Debbie McDonald about commercial broadcasters being able to use the fund. And Louise, I suppose that speaks to you in terms of you've got two hats. You've got the PSB Channel 5 hat, but then the pay TV Nickelodeon hat. So would you want to see Nickelodeon be able to access the fund?
I think we would, and I think this has been obviously a debate that has been from the outset of actually what the fund's purpose is, and it has been for content that is available on PSB and free-to-air platforms. So content that we've had funding for, it does have a holdback to pay services, and I think that's something that Jackie, BFI, the DCMS and Ofcom, they discuss regularly about sort of what is the future of this fund and sort of other models for content going forward, because at the moment this is just for the sort of the PSB platforms to start off with, but we would welcome that for the paid platforms as well. And I think the other discussion point that we have with Jackie and her team regularly is about second series, because it's very hard for second series to get funding quickly. Going out to the market and trying to get that funding is very difficult, and that's something that I know that the team are looking at, of whether there's some kind of recoup model, or is there a sort of different sort of pattern that you could have for second series as well. But yeah, we would welcome that definitely for Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., Nicktoons as well. Yeah.
Chances there, because I suppose that could also broaden out to pay TV, but then you get the streamers potentially being able to use it as well. And also, what about with YouTube as well?
Well, I mean, the fund intention is quite clear. It's for free to access regulated content. So we are supporting great content that will live in safe places. So, I mean, YouTube is everyone's favourite search engine, but it's not actually a very safe place for young people to spend too much time. And sort of the intention of the fund is very much about public service platforms. If we were struggling to spend the money, then maybe we'd look at expanding things out, but we're really not struggling to spend the money at this time. And the other thing as well, because it's a pilot, we're evaluating every nook and cranny of the fund's activities. And it's much easier for us to evaluate impact when we've got a narrow spread of channels that we're putting content onto. So that's another big reason. So we need to see, is this working? Are we making an impact? Are we attracting audiences? And is it because of these funded programs? And you need a good selection of funded programs on each platform to measure that. So that's why we're not looking outside of our admittedly very narrow remit. And as well, I think, it's public money as well. And I think there's a sort of good reason to sort of keep it to those free to access public service platforms for that reason.
Okay, and I'll bring the indies back in here. So Joe and Emma, in your experience, when you've been working with the fund, have you been leading the kind of leading the application, or has that been coming with from the broadcaster?
I've sort of been leading it. So the broadcaster works with you, and I think works with the BFI, but and with the YACF fund. But in terms of sort of the application form, I did that.
Yeah, I'm the same. Ours was from the off. E4 asked for this to be turned around and delivered in 6 weeks. So I got onto the application and was helped along the way. It was my first ever BFI, and it is a bit whoa at the start, but you get into it and that's it. And I think, it's not good. It's going to be encouraging me to go for more, and apply again. I think once you've done it once, then hopefully it'll be a lot easier going forward. But no, they were always there, and honestly, I didn't think you always think because it's a big, it's BFI, and then you just think, oh, they're not going to text you or phone you, but they do. They're on the end of the phone and they text you, and there's a great relationship. Yeah.
And on that, Jackie, there's a question from Becky Overton about, I suppose, how much you would partner potential, companies or individuals that could have a potential kind of good working relationship if they're, working on an idea, a similar idea with a similar vision. Would you potentially partner individuals, companies up to develop something?
We've purposely avoided being a sort of agency like that because it can lead to complications. But I think, and again, last year we said to people, if you have young talent in your company, you could act as an umbrella organisation and help them through the application process. And I will come back to my favourite catchphrase, and I can't believe I haven't mentioned it yet, is case by case basis. What we do is talk to people and we sort of try and understand their specific situations. So sometimes there will be a, do you know Doody what's it over there sort of conversation, but then it's very much up to that individual to go and make those overtures because they've got something in common. But just in terms of ideas coming through, if we had 2 development projects submitted in similar territory and we thought that they were fitting the fund criteria, well, we wouldn't choose because it's not for us to choose. If we had 2 projects for Milkshake, for example, that were covering similar territory, we might make an award to both of them, and then they could go present to Louise and she could go, I love that one, I don't love that one, and it's up to her to make the decision. It's broadcaster's choice because it's about encouraging plurality of broadcaster tone of voice in the country as much as anything else.
Okay. And a question from Aisling Gallagher, who talks about deficits. So are there any deficits still remaining in terms of target age groups or genres, and any areas that have already had too many applications?
No, do you know what? I think the spread is pretty good. And we have got literally something for everyone. We've got history shows, art shows, drama, comedy, game shows, all of it. And I think everybody has kind of responded well to the Ofcom guidance about where programme deficits are. So we're seeing a lot of live action submissions, which is great because that's what Ofcom identified. We're seeing a lot of content for older kids. Great, that's what Ofcom asked for. But as well as that, we've always said we just need great content across the piece. One thing Ofcom also said was that there was too much preschool animation in the UK. There is an awful lot of preschool animation in the UK, but there's not a lot of British preschool animation in the marketplace that actually gets funded and produced. So, we're sort of happy to support those sorts of things as well. So, Nick, you saw the Slate announcement yesterday. There was a sort of a great variety in there. From teen comedy to, preschool animation, and again, building on our previous Slate application from last November. So already, 18 shows in first year, another 7 in this year already, with lots more to come. I think, we're really sort of offering a great variety in terms of genre, technique and target age group as well, but we are mostly speaking to the Ofcom guidance.
Yeah, it's interesting that one of the projects yesterday, the preschool project that I think, Louise, so you're working on, Circle Square, which I remember it being pitched at Cartoon Forum quite a few years ago, and it was described as an EastEnders for preschoolers, so obviously quite a UK-centric theme there that maybe has prevented it from kind of, putting together that last bit of the jigsaw on the international market, but now the YACF Fund are able to kind of step in.
Yeah, and
I would say so, definitely. Sorry, Jackie, you go ahead.
What I say about that, it's sort of a bit of a poster child for additionality and the difficulties that producers of even something that sort of should be internationally very saleable and commercial, even those shows still struggle because the international marketplace is so competitive and so tough. And yes, Circle Square does have a British tone of voice, but the themes in there about getting along with people, understanding that people are all different families do different things and behave differently, but you've got to kind of get along with all the gangs, right? I mean, those themes are universals. You know, children meet so many people in their sort of very early years, far more than you think they'd be able to remember, but those guys get it. And sort of getting children to appreciate and celebrate those differences in early years is really important. That's a universal. But the tone of voice and the humour of it is distinctly British in the way that something like Hey Dougie is distinctly British, but it has had international success. But it's quite hard to get international broadcasters to buy in early for those sorts of shows in these days.
And I'd completely echo what Jackie said, because it would just take longer in the market to get that funding. And as you said, Circle Square, that was pitched some years ago, so it's taken that time to sort of get to this stage. And it's such a unique concept, and the Brothers McLeod are amazing creators, and the team behind it has got that quintessential British feel to it, and it just might not have got that sort of international funding up front as sort of pre-sale, pre-buy. And it's the same for live action, particularly for drama, something like Mimi's World. That would have probably taken quite a long time to get international funding because it has got such a British tone. So the fund has been, sort of enabled that to happen sort of much more quickly. So I think that's also something that is very important for the future of the fund as well, beyond the 3 years. It's a 3-year pilot, as Jackie calls it, but it's beyond the 3 years. That's something now that we need to look into, really, because animation is a 18 to 24 month process. Obviously, COVID has put back productions to next year, so it's sort of looking to the future as well is sort of the next steps, really, I think, too.
And obviously, so it is a pilot in the sense that it's a 3-year experiment almost. How could it go beyond the next few years? And what are some of the kind of the key performance indicators for the shows, Jackie?
How could it go forward beyond 3 years? Well, that is in the gift of government, not of my bad self. We do a quarterly evaluation report for the DCMS, and so far they are enjoying what they're seeing, because supporting television that's representative of young British audiences is the key to this, and we are doing that, and in quite a pleasing way. And I think the quality of the productions they're quite enjoying as well. So the DCMS are happy. That's a good sign, right? And then it's going to be ultimately a government decision about what the future holds. So we'll see.
And the key performance indicators. So when a show launches, are you looking for kind of it to have critical acclaim, or is it kind of once it's on air, that's your job done?
I do beg your pardon. Yeah, we've got a Mahusive evaluation framework, and we look at all sorts of metrics around diversity, nation, regions, quality, but audiences is the critical piece, I guess, in terms of broadcasters, because will they want to participate in a fulsome way going forward if the shows that are landing on their channels aren't garnering the audiences we all want them to? That will be a thing. And so at the moment we are, very much getting huge amounts of data from supply side, if you like, from the production companies, and what we're doing to diversify the production community landscape and the sort of slew of ideas and target age groups and things like that. So we're amassing a huge amount of data on that. But what we've got very little of is demand side and audiences, because that is going to be a critical thing in the future. But, COVID has shifted things down a bit, but we still have animation productions going through. We still have, FY News and other shows sort of that are keeping going even through lockdown. But, in terms of the sort of bigger live action pieces, a lot of those have shifted down. So we'll have a slight delay in our audiences data. But I think there's enough compelling, really positive information there that government sort of are enjoying so far. So.
Good stuff. And just finally, we've had another question coming in about the kinds of buyers that can get involved. So someone asking about, for example, a BBC Netflix intended show. So technically something that's going to be on free to air, at least partially. But would that be able to tap into the fund?
So Oh, what a tangled web you've created there, Nico. So Netflix are very much not in scope. I don't think Netflix need our money, in all honesty. But I think for any producer that's got a project and they have an interest from Netflix, well, sure, they can sell it internationally. Sort of outside the UK is fine, but we do insist on a minimum of a 2-year holdback against any SVOD platform for something that we've within the territory, something we supported. So Netflix would be a problem in that one. In terms of the BBC, we've always been sort of very clear and consistent that the BBC are an in-scope broadcaster for this fund because they are Ofcom regulated, free to access with significant UK audience reach, and but lower priority than say Milkshake or CITV because BBC Children's, for example, has had the benefit of the licence fee for a long time, has been sort of quite dominant in the marketplace compared to other broadcasters. So that part, is obviously easier than the Netflix part, but still not a high priority.
Okay, so we are out of time. So that just leaves me to thank all our speakers, Jackie, Louise, Joe and Emma. Thank you very much for your time, and thanks to the tech team as well for all your help. The Young Audiences Content Fund has produced one of the videos for the Inclusivity Now strand of VOD content for CMC called This Is For You. So take a look at that and the other 8 videos, all with practical information on how to improve diversity on and off screen. If you responded to this morning's email and registered for the Young Audiences Content Fund speed meetings, they will be on Zoom at 12:30. Please arrive on time. You've got no excuse. The back chat is opening up now for 30 minutes with some of the speakers you've just heard from. So that's a place to ask maybe some of the more technical questions that we didn't get into in terms of like who you should email, things like that, the more granular stuff. And we'll see you for the next live session, and that is the Commissioner Conversation SVODs at 2 p.m. today. And last but not least, we can't leave out a reminder about tonight's evening social on Zoom, the CMC quiz. Who could miss that? Hope to see you there, and thanks very much for tuning in. Goodbye.